We're keeping up with the month of trade videos and doing the long-awaited lopsided trades list. Now, there's a ton of great examples of win-loss trades in baseball history. A lot of them are famous. In fact, my friend Baseball's Not Dead already did a great video on this that you should check out after this one. So, with all that being said, I'm trying to tell you guys about trades that you might not remember or may not have even heard of before, and we'll be kind of avoiding the most famous examples. So for those of you who are preparing to comment that I missed this trade or missed that trade, here's a list of every trade we're not talking about today. You ready? Chris Archer to the Pirates, Dansby Swanson to the Braves, Fernando Tatis Jr. to the Padres, Yordan Alvarez to the Astros, Jose Bautista to the Blue Jays, Christian Yelich to the Brewers, Miguel Cabrera to the Tigers, Randy Johnson to the Mariners, Pedro Martinez to the Red Sox, Nolan Arenado to the Cardinals, Bobby Abreu to the Phillies, and any of the Fred McGriff trades. All of those trades are not going to be included today. I tried to narrow it down as much as I could to give you guys something new and refreshing. So if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment for another trade video idea that you'd like to see on the Jolly Olive channel. But without further ado, let's dive into the most lopsided trades in baseball history that I could find. I'm going to kick off today's video with our most recent trade of the list as always, also a trade that I famously somehow forgot to include in my video about the Mariners team trade history. This was one of their biggest winning trades in recent memory, and it certainly helped to kickstart their return to winning baseball and eventually the playoffs. This comes despite the team on the other side being a playoff contender as well, the San Diego Padres. Those Padres were in the midst of their first playoff season in over a decade back in 2020, but they were looking to upgrade their backstop position. In a year where they traded for Jake Cronenworth and Mike Clevenger, they opted to make another big blockbuster move, swinging a deal with Seattle to acquire Austin Nola. Nola had a .903 OPS at the time of the trade, with team control until 2026, so it appeared the Padres had found their clear catcher of the future. Nola hasn't panned out exactly as planned, though he hasn't necessarily been bad. In over 200 career games in San Diego, he's hit just 9 home runs with an OPS plus below 90, but he's been a plus defensively, resulting in him being worth 3.2 BWAR since the beginning of the trade. The other arms acquired, Austin Adams and Dan Altavilla, have eaten innings but not done much else. On the other side, Seattle acquired a haul, including 2 cornerstone pieces of their future success. The first was infielder Ty France, who was blocked on both corners in San Diego by Eric Hosmer and Manny Machado. He finally got regular playing time with the Mariners and has really hit his stride, even making the All-Star team last year with a 20-homer season. He's logged an OPS plus 20% better than league average since joining Seattle, but it doesn't stop there. Seattle also swung Andres Munoz in this deal, who's become the team's flame-throwing setup man. He's only had one real full season since joining the team, but it was a really good one. In 2022, he tossed 65 innings with a 2.49 ERA and 13.3 K per 9. It helps that Luis Torrens, a catcher thrown to this trade, has been worth more WAR than both the relievers given to San Diego combined. Overall, the Mariners have been the big winner of this deal, and the WAR disparity might grow even larger in due time. From 2020 to 2022, the 10.4 BWAR for Seattle in this trade heavily outweighs the 3.7 BWAR that San Diego ended up getting. But trust me, the trades we're about to go into from past years are far more lopsided than this one. Now let's turn things over to maybe the most perplexing move of this entire list, even without the hindsight given. Back in 2012, the Cubs were coming off a 90-loss season and were in the process of retooling their lineup. With the departure of franchise face Aramis Ramirez, we'll get to him in a second, they were looking to fill a hole at the hot corner. They found a strange answer in former first-round pick Ian Stewart coming over from the Colorado Rockies. Now, a lot of people thought Stewart was going to be good as a former top draft pick, and he had compiled a few decent offensive seasons, but was very much injury-prone and a project for the Cubs. He was coming off his worst career year with an OPS plus of 20 in a 48-game sample, and he wasn't much better in his lone year in Chicago. He was 30% worse than the league average hitter in 55 games before wrist surgery ended his season. The Cubs tried to bring him back next season, but after a 10-game suspension for literally talking shit about the team, they cut ties with him in 2013. The Cubs would be fine in the long run, obviously, but they would have been better if they held on to DJ LeMahieu instead of making this deal. DJ obviously blossomed into one of the best infielders in the National League, making 2 All-Star teams, winning 3 Gold Gloves, and claiming the 2016 batting title during 7 great seasons with the Rockies. In this window, he hit .299 thanks to over 1,000 hits in the purple and black, while also playing stellar infield defense, and that all resulted in a nice cushy 6-year deal with the Yankees, which is still going on right now. LeMahieu has put together an illustrious career, and I just get chills imagining what he would have looked like at second base on that dominant 2016 Cubs team. The Rockies were the big winners in this deal. The B-War swing in this one is egregious, with Colorado gaining 16 wins by basically giving up nothing. Okay, we were a tad mean to the Cubs there, so let's talk about the guy I brought up before, Aramis Ramirez. He's remembered as one of the best position players in that franchise's recent history and was acquired via trade within the National League Central Division in 2003. Fun fact, Aramis Ramirez hung around for 2 decades in MLB, and he only ever played for NL Central teams. The Pirates were stumbling through another lost season despite a promising core in their lineup, and they decided to cut bait with 2 of their best position players to refill their prospect list. With Ramirez, the Cubs nabbed Kenny Lofton as well. They only had him for that half season in 2003, but he was definitely effective, stealing 12 bases with a 120 OPS plus in a 56-game sample, including 16 hits and 4 swipes in their ensuing playoff run where they nearly made the World Series. Obviously though, the bigger win here was Aramis Ramirez, who the Cubs had control of until 2006 but ended up extending well beyond that, keeping him on the north side for 9 years total. In that near decade-long window, Ramirez smacked 239 home runs as a Cub, making 2 All-Star teams, winning a Silver Slugger, and receiving MVP votes in 4 different seasons. He ranks 15th all-time with 256 doubles as a Cub, 7th on their all-time home run list with 239, and 3rd all-time at a 531 slugging clip. And the Pirates had this guy in their hands and decided to just trade him. The Cubs didn't do a ton of winning during his time there, but he might be the most underrated position player in that franchise's entire history. All it took to get him was 3 minor league players, all of whom combined to play under 250 games total with the Pirates. Jose Hernandez, the most established player, was worth a 57 OPS plus in his half season there. Bobby Hill lasted a couple seasons and wasn't much better. In total, this prospect package actually produced negative WAR for the Pirates, while the Cubs reaped the benefits throughout the 2000s, ultimately totaling 25.9 WAR. I'm not sure how many Cubs fans are watching, but if you like that one, you're probably gonna like this one too. The same year that the Cubs made an awful move in dealing away DJ LeMahieu, they then made a fantastic move in trading away Ryan Dempster. In 2012, Dempster was in the final season of a very successful 4-year extension and overall tenure in Chicago. The starter tossed well over 1,000 innings in a 9-year stretch with the Cubs, striking out over 1,000 batters and making an all-star team. He was going out with a bang in 2012 as well, tossing 16 starts with a 2.25 ERA, making himself the marquee starting pitcher available at that year's deadline. He even twirled a 33-inning scoreless streak through June and July, the longest such streak by a Cubs pitcher in 50 years. The lucky winner of his services ended up being the Texas Rangers, who had won each of the last 2 American League pennants and were looking to finally finish the job. Battling an injury to ace Colby Lewis, Ryan Dempster seemed like a perfect fit, except he wasn't. Dempster tailed off from his great first half and a dozen rough starts for Texas, with an ERA over 5 and 3 key losses in his last 4 starts. Despite leading the American League West the entire year, the Rangers fumbled the lead in the final series of the season to the Oakland A's, tumbling back into the wild card thanks to one of Dempster's losses in that series. They would end up losing to the Orioles in very disappointing fashion. What made this move all the more worse is what the Rangers gave up to get Dempster. Former 8th round pick Kyle Hendricks was the big piece the Cubs got in return and was one of the essential pieces to kickstarting their return to relevance in the mid-2010s. His recent years haven't been the best, but without Kyle Hendricks, the Cubs clearly would not have won the 2016 World Series. He tossed over 1,300 innings total with a 3.46 ERA and 87 wins in his career in Chicago, including an ERA title in the Cubs World Series year in 2016. In his 4 starts in the NLCS and World Series that year, he compiled 21 2/3 innings with just 2 earned runs allowed. For the Cubs, Hendricks produced over 20 wins above replacement and is still going, likely to return from the injured list soon in 2023. As for Ryan Dempster, he left the Rangers after 2012 for 1 more season with the Red Sox before retiring, barely registering a positive WAR in his time in Texas. This was a big swing for the Cubs. Okay, enough about the Cubs. Let's talk about another team we discussed before. We talked about an absolute hit for the Mariners before, so it's only fair that we discuss one of their many misses from the 2000s as well. Seattle has traded a lot throughout the years, certainly to a fault at times, but they found themselves with a .500 record at the 2006 deadline. Looking to add to a weak lineup, they found a match with Cleveland and their first baseman Eduardo Perez. He had put up average numbers over his career, but put up a monster first half that year with a 147 OPS plus in 37 games. He was looked at as a cheap rental, and Seattle was trying to return to relevancy, so the deal made made sense at the time. But after they swung this deal, Perez regressed heavily in Seattle with an OPS plus of just 46 as the team spun off an 11-game losing streak after the deadline in what would become his final MLB season. In what was a very regrettable move for Seattle, they let go of their number 3 prospect Asdrubal Cabrera. He made his debut the season after and became a mainstay in the Cleveland lineup as their primary shortstop. In his 8 years for the Tribe, he played in over 900 games and hit over 200 doubles while maintaining an OPS plus of 105 and playing above average defense. Considering the chasm of middle infielders that Seattle went through throughout the years, letting go of Asdrubal Cabrera was a big mistake. Unsurprisingly, Cleveland crushed Seattle in the war exchange here, with Perez making a negative impact in his lone year while Cabrera registered over 20 wins in his time in Cleveland. Seattle has made a lot of bad trades in their history, but I feel like that was one that flew under the radar. This one that we're going to talk about next, though, this might be the worst trade on the entire list. And it's compiled of 3 names you're familiar with. Back in 2004, the San Francisco Giants were coming off an 100-win season but a disappointing first-round loss, and they were faced with replacing longtime backstop Benito Santiago. That offseason, they swung a deal with the Minnesota Twins to bring in all-star catcher AJ Pierzynski, who was coming off his most impressive offensive season. Twins fans, 2 years removed from an ALCS appearance, were understandably upset. The deal made sense though, as AJ had just 1 year left of control on his contract before hitting free agency as the top catcher on the market. He was serviceable but ultimately underwhelming in his 1-season stint out in the Bay, with a below average OPS plus and just 19 walks in over 130 games. The Giants did win 91 games, but they missed the playoffs, and Pierzynski left that offseason to begin an 8-year run with the White Sox, getting his World Series ring next year. As for the Twins, they made off like bandits in this trade, acquiring starter Francisco Liriano and arguably the best reliever in franchise history, Joe Nathan. The former made the All-Star team in just his 2nd season and won 50 games in 7 years as a Minnesota Twin, receiving both Rookie of the Year and Cy Young votes in his tenure. His best years came with the Pirates later on, but still, Francisco Liriano was an essential cog to this rotation. But obviously, the marquee piece here became Joe Nathan. Nathan saved at least 36 games this season for a 6-year run, locking down 260 saves total as a Twin, which is their all-time franchise record. He logged 561 strikeouts and a whip below 1, emerging as the most dominant 9th-inning man Minnesota ever had, with his 18.4 wins above replacement in just 7 years as a reliever. The swing here is over 27 wins in Minnesota's favor, though San Francisco ended up being just fine once the 2010s got going. The last of our 7 trades we'll be talking through today also takes place in the mid-2000s and was also a 2-for-1 swap. The Brewers were in the midst of a 25-year playoff drought, desperate to make 2006 the year they broke their curse. After playing 500 ball through most of the year, though, they hit a skid in July, falling to a 48-55 record near the end of that month. With a bullpen ERA in the bottom 10 of the league, they were eager to boost their relievers, and they found help in the Texas Rangers. Milwaukee acquired closer Francisco Cordero, who was under team control through the end of next season. Though the Brewers failed around him, Cordero was incredibly reliable for the crew, tossing 94 games and locking down 60 saves with a 2.60 ERA. Cordero locked down 329 career saves, but his stint in Milwaukee was one of his most dominant. The Brewers got what they wanted out of this trade, but it probably wasn't a smart trade to make in the first place, especially considering where the team was at the time. Initially, the key piece in this deal was a rental in Carlos Lee. Milwaukee initially wanted to keep Lee, but the Brewers' 4-year, $48 million contract extension wasn't sufficient enough for him, resulting in them pivoting to a trade. Lee hit 9 home runs with a 128 OPS plus in the second half for the Rangers. Texas only played 500 ball that season before Carlos Lee left for a longer stint in Houston, but it was the other piece of this deal that made the Rangers the big winners here, and that piece was outfielder Nelson Cruz. Cruz was a part of the organization for 8 great years, and his 157 home runs ranks 8th all-time in Rangers franchise history. He was a key piece of the lineup that helped Texas reach the World Series in consecutive seasons in 2010 and 2011, and he went on to finish ranking top 15 in doubles, RBIs, and on-base plus slugging in their team's franchise history. Though he didn't bring any real defensive value, Cruz was still worth a whopping 12 wins, as he and Lee combined to give the Rangers nearly 10 more WAR than what they dealt away in reliever Francisco Cordero, resulting in a Texas-sized win for the Rangers. Imagine if that Brewers lineup kept Nelson Cruz and had him sandwiched in between Ryan Braun and Prince Fielder. One can only imagine. And that'll do it for today's video on the most lopsided trades in MLB history. I hope you guys were surprised by at least one of these because I really went digging to not find stuff you just see in an article. So if you did enjoy the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the Jolly Olive channel. Also ring that bell for all future notifications so you never miss a video. But before you go, let's hear a word from today's sponsor. Today's Jolly Olive video was brought to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 on any pregame moneyline bet and instantly get $150 in bonus bets. And they can spread that money on some same-game parlays for a shot at even bigger winnings at the end of the day. Whether you're betting on basketball playoffs or the current baseball season, there's tons of fun things to do on the DraftKings Sportsbook, and it's a free and easy-to-use app. You can download it right now, use promo code OLIVE, O-L-I-V-E, and take advantage of this offer. Bet $5 on any pregame moneyline bet and get $150 in bonus bets instantly only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details, and any resources you might need for a gambling problem or addiction are listed down below as always. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you guys next time.